It's been a while since I've went on a rant, so let's go on a rant. We're going to talk about pitches today. Pull up a chair, get some popcorn, take some notes. This is going to be fun. Hi, my name's Eagle. I am the publisher, I am the line editor, and for today's video I need to point out I am the chair of the editorial board for No Earth Comics. Why am I pointing that one out when I usually don't bring it up at all? Because today we are talking about the editorial board, pitches, and how this affects you, the potential collaborator at No Earth Comics. Hi, let's go ahead and just get into this, and mind you, there's a reason for this. There's a reason I'm doing this video. It's a response video to the last 2 weeks. And let me just call something up here on my screen so I can take a look at it. Currently, we are dealing with 16 pitches on our pitch board. Okay, of those, 10 of them are active pitches. And of those 10 active pitches, I have looked at all 10 of them in the last 5 days. Let's just make that perfectly clear. I've been going over 10 pitches in the last 5 days. And I see the same things over and over again, and we're going to address those. First, I want you to keep in mind something. It's David Blake's Law. David Blake was a comic book writer. David Blake may still be a comic book writer. But anyway, David Blake's a comic book writer, and he had a simple law. If it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Simply put, if what you are doing as a writer isn't going to make the company you are doing it for money, then there's no sense in the company doing it. We clear on that? Before you start gurgling and spitting out incoherencies, let me go ahead and help you out a little bit here. As a company, No Earth Comics is making you a bargain. We are going to take your script, we are going to match it with an artist, and we are going to produce and publish a finished comic. Now then, that sounds like magic. Let me tell you the realities of it on the back end. On the back end, it means that we are using a relationship that we have with another company to publish those comics. And this is not cheap. And then we are using the outlets that we have, such as conventions and local shops and our online store, to attempt to sell those comics. So we need a saleable product to roll off that printing press. So if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Plain and simple. If what you're handing us is not going to be saleable, now then, let me back that up just a little bit, because I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. We are not trying to be Marvel or DC or even Image. We're trying to produce a different kind of comic. We're trying to produce something that's not the standard mainstream comic. It still has to be saleable. It still has to have an audience. It's an audience that is not currently a recognized portion of the audience, but we think it can be. And that is adult comic book readers who want a more story-oriented experience. Less of a character-oriented experience and more of a story-oriented experience. So this is what we're looking for, is we're looking for the stories. So let's just go into how we want you to pitch us. Let's start with the fact, don't send us a script. We used to accept scripts. After this last round of submissions, we have stopped accepting scripts. And there's a simple reason for that. Your script is not what we're looking for. Crickets. I hear crickets. Your script is not what we're looking for. We are quite possibly looking for your idea, but we're not looking for your script off the bat. This is because your script is going to require changes. You are not going to be able to submit a script to us right off the bat and have it be something that we're looking for. So what we want is a pitch. And the pitch is going to be 1 to 3 pages, maybe 1 to 4 pages. And starting with this video, we're actually going to try and formalize how this works a little bit. Now then, if you have not watched them yet, go ahead and hit pause and go watch the following 2 videos first. Watch the editorial board and working with them, and watch the 5 elements of fiction. Those 2 videos in our playlist will serve as the basis for this video because I'm going to be referring to those 2 videos a lot. So, this is an evolution of how we've been doing things. And we are continually evolving. We don't know. This is a brand new business model. The way that we do the editorial board is brand new. This is something new and different. It's not been done this way before, and we are learning. And in doing the number of projects that we have passed through this so far, we have learned a lot. So let's start with the very top of your pitch. Now then, let me cover one thing before I go into this. Last thing, I swear, right after this, we're going to get into how to construct a pitch for No Earth Comics. Let's cover the fact that you need to be aware of No Earth Comics. There's been a distressing number of people that when I question them, they haven't read the comics that are on the site. There's 60 plus pages of comics on the site that represent canon for the No Earth world. They represent a look and feel for the No Earth world. They represent a attitude for the No Earth world. If you have not read them, we're going to know. There's a timeline that shows where No Earth deviates from our world. No Earth stands for not our Earth. So when I say our Earth, I'm talking about the one that we are presumably all living on. There are some people that I have questions about, but we're going to make the presumption that we're all living on the same planet. And No Earth is an alternate history. So if you haven't at least skimmed the timeline and gotten a rough idea of how history works on No Earth, we're going to know. Next, there's the background section, 10,000 words that constitutes a writer's Bible for the No Earth world. If you haven't read it, it's going to show. And lastly, this is, I believe, video number 35. I'll have to check that before I post it, but we have done a huge number of videos, and part of them are about the background, and part of them are ideas on how to get farther with the pitch or the script process. If you haven't watched them, it's going to show. So just like you would do for Marvel or DC or Image, familiarize yourself with No Earth and the universe that we are constructing before you try pitching us. Please, it's common courtesy. It saves us a lot of time and aggravation. It'll save you a lot of time and aggravation. Okay, so let's go into how to construct the pitch. First, we're going to lead with what is known as the logline or the elevator pitch. And this is just a simple sentence. One sentence. Just one. Just one. One sentence. It can be corny and hokey. As an example, one of the best pitches of all time, one of the best elevator pitches of all time for comic books was Sin City. And Miller's elevator pitch for it was Conan in a trench coat. that adequately described what was about to happen. We have one, and by the way, feel free to use other companies' properties in your elevator pitch. You know, Snakes on a Plane was basically Die Hard on a Plane. This is what we want to see. We want to see a single sentence that gives us some idea of what to expect in the rest of the pitch. It doesn't have to be totally 100% accurate, and we're going to pretty much leave it alone on the critiquing. But we do want to see some sort of elevator pitch or log line at the beginning. Next, what we're going to hit is the 5 elements of fiction. And on the 5 elements of fiction, we're going to use them in a particular order that will help make your pitch a little bit more fluid. So we start with character. And what you're going to do is you're going to list the major characters that are going to be in your proposal, and you're going to give a paragraph on each one of them. And this is simple enough. If you want to include a couple of sketches, that's fine. But a paragraph on each one of them. Next is the setting. And this gets important, because in the setting you need to not only tell us where it is, and don't say the city. Don't say undecided. Have an idea of where you want to put this geographically. And then tell us how this pitch fits within the No Earth universe. Reference other comics in the series, or reference other comics that we are publishing if that is necessary, or if that's desirable. But what you want to do is show where this fits in the No Earth universe, what niche it occupies, and how it's going to enhance the No Earth universe. Because that's what we're about. We want to expand and enhance this universe. If you are pitching us something that is set in a comfortable corner of the universe, we're not going to be so impressed as if it was something that is expanding how the universe is seen by the public. Next, briefly touch on the theme, because this can really affect how we look at a pitch. If the theme is one of redemption, then that colors how we're going to look at the rest of the pitch. If the theme is one of revenge, if the theme is one of... I often say, and by the way, I stole this from Peter David, do not give me credit for brilliance. It's his brilliant idea, that the theme is the skeleton of the story. It's what you hang the flesh of the story on. So your theme needs to be solid when you approach us with the pitch. During the editorial process, we may alter the theme, but that'll be a mutual decision between you and the editorial board. But for starters, you need to have a theme in place. Next is the conflict. And we need to know what the primary... A good story uses all 3 conflicts. For those of you who are blanking on that at the moment, conflict is man versus nature, man versus himself, man versus man. We need to know what the primary conflict of the story is going to be. Secondary conflicts, we're assuming that you're going to use them. Okay, but the primary conflict of the story is important. And finally, the plot. And for the plot, what we like to see is the first issue outline and the first 6 issue overview. There is a horrible, horrible trend in comics these days that's called write for the trade. Now, and if you're not familiar with this, it is the concept that every 6 issues is going to be collected into a trade paperback anyway. So forget writing for the single issue, write for the trade. And we firmly, vehemently, adamantly, I got to pile some more words on here, but let's just go ahead and go into the next part of the sentence. Disagree with this. We want each issue to be a self-contained story. We do not want decompressed storytelling that turns a 2 or 3 issue story into a 6 issue arc just for a trade paperback. What we want is a 6 issue arc with 6 solid issues. Each one of those issues having a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then there being an overarching story that covers the 6 issues together. A big bad hiding in the background, whatever. But the idea here being that we want to see what your idea for the first issue is. We want to see if this is something that's going to be workable in a 22-page script. We want to see if this is something that's going to be workable for a 6-issue arc. So this is our basic requirements. And once you've done that, send it in. And let me tell you what happens next. And this is the part where things get a little bit harsh. We're going to comment on it, and you are going to be expected to keep up. And by that, I mean you're going to be expected to respond to the comments and change the pitch to reflect the comment or defend the pitch against the comments depending on what you feel is appropriate. Let me put it to you this way. This is being just as blunt as I can. There are 5 people on the editorial board that have a vote. If you don't get enough approved votes, we're not going to greenlight your pitch. We're going to reject it. So when you are looking at a member of the editorial board's comment, and they have basically said, I'm not happy with the script or with the pitch because of this reason, what you are being told is, this needs to change to make me happy. Now then, that's one person. You still got 2 or 3 that might like it. And they may or may not be saying anything. So it's up to you whether or not you make the change. Okay? We're not going to change your pitch. That's up to you. We're not there to rewrite your stuff for you. That's your job. Our job is to point out where we're having problems. And if you see 2 or 3 people chiming in with the same problems, oh boy. This is time to do the deep soul-searching, self-reflection, self-awareness test that says, have I screwed up? This is where you step back, you try and pivot all the way around to the editorial board's point of view to look at that script and figure out, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. If they are telling me that this is not something that they feel is saleable, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to go in and rewrite this. And I'm telling you, we could be wrong. You know, the entire editorial board could be against you, and we could all be wrong. You could have the next whatever, the next huge success, but it won't be at No Earth Comics. You're going to have to take this to another publisher, because unless we feel like this is something that our customers are going to buy, and by the way, we want our customers to be a very, very broad, God, I've never needed a wide angle lens before. We're wanting our customers to be a very, very broad field of consumers. We're wanting not to hit the narrow band of comic book collectors, but we're wanting to sell outside of comic book collectors. We're wanting to sell to people who are not intimately familiar with the comic book tropes and accept them willingly. We're wanting to sell to people that want a good story. So, I've probably beaten that particular deceased equine enough, but just to drive home the final little blow, You are pitching. Pitch as in sales pitch. As in you are attempting to sell us your idea. You're attempting to convince us that we want to greenlight it for a script. And then we want to attach an artist to it. Then we want to hand you shares for it, which means money. And then we want to spend money to print it, and spend money to promote it, and spend money to put it in places to sell. So you're asking us to take a financial gamble and pay you for it. So you need to bring your A game. You need to convince us why this is a good idea for us. You need to, if we are questioning whether or not there is an audience for it, you need to convince us there is an audience. And you need to do this by cold logical facts. You need to do this by showing us other comics that have succeeded. And you need to do this by respecting the experience and the knowledge that is inherent in the editorial board. I don't like rejecting pitches. I really don't. It goes against my nature. Because here's the truth, and you know, this is just me being as bluntly honest as I can be. We are not a professional company. We are a company that is attempting to have professional standards. But nobody's making a living off this. We are essentially glorified hobbyists trying to work our way into being something bigger. But in order to do that, we're going to have standards of quality and standards of professionalism, and we're going to have to produce. I recognize that this is a difficult industry to break into. I recognize that this is a difficult field to break into, and it has so many people who are so passionate about this that they're willing to do this for little or no money just for that chance. And I want to give them the chance, which means that if you are showing even the slightest inkling of being any good at writing, we're going to coach you. We're going to try and help you through this. What does it take for us to reject your pitch? Your ego gets in the way. You're too married to the concept that you think that simply saying, oh no, this is going to be great, is an argument. It's not. Or you are so adamantly convinced that this is the right way to do it that you are not listening when 2 to 5 people on the editorial board are telling you that's not going to work, either commercially or for the No Earth world. We're looking for projects that are going to fit in, but more importantly, we're looking for writers that are going to fit in. We're looking for writers who can check their ego, who can leave it outside, and who can come in and be part of a collaborative team. And if that's not you, then you're probably wasting your time sending us a pitch. More importantly, you're wasting our time. And once again, I'm sorry for the harshness, but this is a place for truth. This is a place for understanding that this is a commercial venture. And we treat our collaborators with professionalism and respect, and we expect the same in return. And professionalism means you leave your ego out of this. You leave the idea that you are right and the rest of the world is wrong out of this. I've gone on for almost a half an hour now. I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. Please watch the 5 Elements of Fiction video. Watch the Working with the Editorial Board video. Watch this one. Watch them all again. And recognize what we're trying to do and recognize what we have accomplished so far. And if this is something that you're wanting to be a part of, this is the right way to go about it. But thank you very much for tuning in, and we're going to talk again.